أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ونبينا حبيب قلوبنا وطبيب نفوسنا وشفيع ذنوبنا أبي القاسم محمد بن عبد الله
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد
وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين الذين أذهب الله عنهم الأرجاس وطهرهم من الأدناس وجعل مودتهم أجرا على الناس ولا سيما على بقية الله في الأرضين الإمام المنتظر حكم القدر صاحب الزمان عجل الله تعالى فرجه الشريف ابن هداة المهديين وعلى صحبهم الأخيار المنتجبين وعلى جميع الأنبياء والمرسلين والشهداء والمجاهدين في سبيل الله منذ آدم إلى قيام يوم الدين. Before we start today's discussion, just as we said yesterday before we started, that the questions and answers that take place today should ideally take place in the English language for everyone to benefit. And secondly, primarily should be related to the topics we have discussed over the last 11 nights. Before we begin, there have already been two questions posed which people wish to be answered but either are too shy or hesitant to ask on the mic or via paper. So we will answer these two questions before we take questions from the floor, inshallah. The first question is about our last talk in which we discussed the narration from Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam in which he said, "Mutu qabla an tamutu." Die before you die. We discussed the meaning of this being be dead to the world. Before you have to die, the physical death. The question arose that does this not contradict the fact that we have received so many blessings from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in terms of our finances, car, house, wealth? If we are supposed to be dead to all of this, why would Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give this to us in the first place? Does it mean that we cannot show it and make it apparent that I have this? What does being dead mean exactly in this sense when Rasulullah says, "Mutu qabla an tamutu"? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is Al-Mu'ti and Al-Rahman and Al-Rahim and Al-Razzaq, and He has given us so many blessings. One of the ibadah for us, one of the acts of worship is to be thankful for His ni'am, His blessings, and use them in the correct way. So can I have wealth? Can I own a nice big house? Can I own a nice car? Or I'm not allowed to do so? The Prophet said, "Mutu qabla an tamutu." There is nothing wrong with owning these things. Absolutely nothing wrong. When we say mutu, it means being detached from these things. Which means I may own it or I may not own it. Doesn't make any difference to me. In such a way that if I'm sitting here a pauper and suddenly $1 million lands on me, I don't become overly happy because it's from Allah, alhamdulillah. If in the next hour I lose it all again, alhamdulillah. Detached from this. Owning it, there's no problem. Having a big house, having a nice car. You should have a nice car. If you can afford it and you don't have a nice car, change it. Because you have to manifest the perfection of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah, إِنَّهُ هُوَ الْجَمِيلُ وَيُحِبُّ الْجَمَالِ. He is wonderful and beautiful. He loves these things. So, why shouldn't we have them? Have them. We shouldn't drive around in a car, despite us having the money to afford a nice, pleasant thing. We shouldn't be driving around in a car such that it is necessary to have one of our passengers to be a mechanic all the time. No, have a decent car, have a decent house. Show we are Muslims, we are for the followers of the Ahlul Bayt, we live like this. We don't live like paupers. But we need to draw a balance. What is my intention behind having this? Is it so I can show off, therefore my ego comes into play? Is it because I am attached to these luxurious comforts, such that had I been in a smaller house, in a less prosperous neighborhood, with a less expensive car, I would be moved inside, my nafs would change? If this is the case, then this is not being dead from the dunya. When the Prophet says, "Mutu qabla an tamutu," I should be in such a state. Having said all of this, let us also remind ourselves that the more we own, the more we will be accountable for on that terrible day of judgment. For what we have done haram and what we own in a haram way will be punished for. What we own in a halal way will be accounted for. Such that we have a story from Bahlul, who was at the time of the Khalifa Harun Rashid of the Abbasid Caliphate. He was related to the Khalifa Harun, who was the second dynasty which had usurped the right of the Ahlul Bayt after the Umayyads. Harun was related to this Bahlul. Bahlul was seen to be the clown of the village, but he wasn't. He was very sane, and he used to pass on his wisdom in certain ways. So Bahlul meets his Harun Rashid in the street, in the marketplace. Harun is the Khalifa. So he wants to mock him, the Khalifa wants to mock this apparently crazy person, ask him, Bahlul, how are you today? What's happening? So everything is okay. Then Bahlul tells him, I want to play a game with you. So Harun, to entertain this fool, says, fine, we play a game. What's your game? Then let's rehearse the day of judgment, how it's going to be. So he said, okay, what shall we do? He said, let's go out into the desert, because we know the day of judgment is going to be hot and terrible in this way. But those who wish they had a shade above their heads said, okay, let's do this. So they went. Bahlul said, okay, now we'll have to account for everything we have. He said, yes. I'll go first, Bahlul says, then you start. So he said, okay. Bahlul takes off his shoes. He stands on a rock, which is burning because of the heat of the sun. He can hardly stand on it. Because this is the type of terrible stuff we will face on the Day of Judgment, as we have from the Riwayat. Day of Judgment will be terrible for some people who are attached to the world. Okay, so Bahlul stands on this rock, and he says, oh Allah, like this, moving the foot because he can't stand on the rock, it's burning because of the sun. So, oh Allah, I have these slippers which I wear, which I got from this person and I bought for this much, and the money came from here. And I have this bowl which I eat from, and I bought it from here and X, Y, and Z. And I have this stick which I used to lean on, and I got it from here, which the money of it came from here, and I worked for it here. And he jumped off the rock. Now you go. The Khalifa who owns everything in the Muslim empire from east to west, he refused to. He said, oh, this man's crazy, and he went away. But Bahlul was teaching us a lesson. The more you own, the more you'll be accountable for. So why keep this worrying on us? First we have to worry, the more I own in this world, the more I have to protect anyway. Unlike knowledge protects me, but I have to protect my wealth. And to put more burden on myself on that terrible day, I'll have to account for all of this. Why? I don't need it. But having said that, like we said, owning things is not a problem. Attaching oneself to these things so that when it is my time to go, like we spoke about the two lumps of dough, which need to be separated from each other. If I'm already detached from these things and I can detach myself easily, no problem. Like Imam Ali alayhi salam was, whereby he said to his son Hassan alayhi salam, "Inna abaka la yubali, waqa'a ala al-maut, or waqa'a al-maut alayhi." Indeed, your father isn't concerned, he doesn't care whether he stumbles upon death or death comes and stumbles upon him, it doesn't make a difference. So, when Rasulullah says, Mutu qabla an tamutu, die to your desires, die to the wealth, die to your carnal aspect, your animalistic aspect, not having these things. Being attached to these things whereby you feel you want to stay here and not die, not cross that bridge from this temporary life into the eternal life. Even when I want to marry, Allah has made beauty. Does that mean I shouldn't choose a beautiful woman to marry because then, it's something dunyawi? No. Allah has